Welcome, everyone, to the Doc of Detox show. I'm Dr. Darrell Wolfe, and my guest today is the renowned Jeffrey Smith, co-director of Secret Ingredients. He's also the executive director of the Institute for Responsible Technology. Good morning, Jeffrey. How you doing, buddy?
Really good, Doc. And you?
Oh, I'm wonderful. It was nice seeing you at Ty Bollinger's house for the Christmas get-together.
It was great. I've spoken for 22 years all over, and very often you get on the stage and you speak and you see another speaker and you love what they're having to say, and then you're whisked away to the next event. So it was great to actually have the speakers that get together for these live events actually get together for a social event.
You know what? I hope I'm invited every year. I don't want to miss it. First of all, they were colleagues, and now there's a lot of people that were there that are very, very dear friends of mine and close friends. And when you really get into people and really see how their heart ticks, it's so beautiful, especially with going there around the Christmas season and everybody getting together like that.
And we all have our own area, but the motivation for that is really to help and to serve. It's like, I think between us, we've probably saved or improved the health of tens of millions of people. And when you take a look at everyone in that room, it's a country's worth. So yeah, it's an amazing gathering and like-minded souls.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I'm just so blessed to actually be in the fold with Ty and Charlene Bollinger, and their mission statement is so true blue. And I want to get into asking you the questions, but I just want to state here that, of all the people that I know, I mean, that couple for helping to really truly help the globe and coming from such a heart-filled, beautiful spirit is one of the most amazing things that I've seen. And every year they amaze me, that couple. That's all I want
Yeah,
to say. Yeah.
lots of heart there.
Lots of heart. So let's get right into this, okay? Jeffrey, you just released a film called Secret Ingredients, okay, that you made with Amy Hart. Tell us about the film, and if you don't mind, why did you put so much effort and so much work into making this film?
Well, this is actually my fourth film, but this is the one that I think will have the biggest impact. My focus is on genetically modified foods, or GMOs, and I've been doing that for 22 years. And I have helped redefine and reframe the debate in the world about GMOs, focusing it on the health dangers. When I started more than 2 decades ago, no one else was talking about the health dangers. The nonprofits were talking about the environment or farmers rights or patenting. And I realized
Right.
that actually our leverage, our success, our strategy should be to move consumers by giving them the truth about how they were gambling with their health in every bite. And so I started interviewing scientists and gathering information. And what happened was, over time, I compiled all the health dangers. My first book, Seeds of Deception, became the world's best-selling book. But then I would hand that book to, cabinet ministers all over the world, one head of state, several other very top-ranking people. And they say, "Thank you very much. Can you sign it, Jeffrey?" And then they'd give it to their assistant. And that's probably the last time they ever saw it. So I needed to write a book that was something that could convince them by being very short, because they're all attention deficit, and have the details to convince their staff. So I wrote a book, a compilation called Genetic Roulette: The Documented Health Risks of Genetically Engineered Foods, which had a 2-page spread. The left side was for the attention deficit politician. The right side was the details for their staff. And that went out. But when I put that together, I started to present to medical conferences all over the country, and in some cases around the world. And up until that point, if people told me, "Oh, I can tell the difference if I eat a GMO or a non-GMO," I didn't actually believe them. I was the leading spokesperson on the health dangers, Doc, about GMOs. I was aware that rats were getting damaged in just 10 days, but I thought that it would be more like a subtle change in the epidemiological prevalence of certain diseases that would reveal some of the dangers on humanity. But when I started to tell the doctors, they started to prescribe non-GMO diets, thousands of doctors to often thousands of patients each. And they came back to me and said, people are getting better and it's dramatic and it's amazing. And it's like within days or a week or sometimes more than a week, but everyone seems to respond. So I came out with my last film, Genetic Roulette, and quoted a lot of the doctors. And then I got deluged by people who said, I changed my diet and I got better from this or this or this or this, and realized I was the person in the world hearing more of these testimonials than anyone. And these were the most compelling things. I knew the science could speak the dangers, but the personal transformations were critical. And so we decided to do a film based on the personal transformations, and that's what Secret Ingredients is about. Amy Hart, my co-director, is an expert at turning film into story. I know all about the dangers, and so we have more than a dozen individuals who got better from all sorts of diseases when they switched to an organic diet. And then we talk about how GMOs and Roundup in particular are linked to the diseases they got better from. And then the science is so clear, and the physicians verify the experience by saying, this is what's happening to a percentage of our patients every day in our practices.
Well, this is why you're so well known, is because you came out with something and that people didn't realize. And I mean, I hardly go through a week without somebody mentioning your name. And I just want to say that, you may not consider yourself a practitioner, but as far as helping everybody on a global scale to wake up to one of the most, how can I say this, conflicting and confusing things that are undermining everybody's health condition. And I mean everyone, right from pregnant mothers to babies to the elderly. I mean, there's nobody that's not being touched. I mean, even our pets. It's like it's gone rampant, and you're the one that's on the main front of this, that's actually bringing this to everybody and looking and getting everybody to look on a personal level now. It's not out there. It's in here. It's in our house. It's in our cupboards. It's in our fridge.
I'm going to get to some of the health dangers and what people can do, but you gave me a word, pets, that I've got to take a little tangent on. We have a website called petsandgmos.com, and we have a 10-minute film with 8 different veterinarians and many pet owners describing the dramatic recovery and transformation of these dogs and cats when they're switched to organic diets. Now, I was being interviewed by Ty Bollinger for The Truth About Pet Cancer last year, and he said that dogs have by far the highest cancer rate of any mammal. And he, according to his evidence, it was 1 out of every 1.6. Now, when you look at the dogs, glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup herbicide, which is sprayed on our food supply, primarily on GMOs, but also in a lot of other products, you can find it in the urine of humans, but you can also find it in the urine of animals, including dogs. And dogs, according to the HRI lab that did the test, they had 40 times the amount of glyphosate. Now, glyphosate was determined by the World Health Organization's top committee to be a probable human carcinogen, but they agreed that it did cause cancer in animals. And so here we have this carcinogen that's in 40 times higher in the urine of dogs, and the dogs are getting cancer far more often than any other mammal. And we've actually tested the dog food, and we have a report of which dog foods have which levels of glyphosate. You can go to petsandgmos.com and watch the 10-minute film, and now we have a 2-minute film that we just released for those that don't have 10 minutes. But if you have a dog or a cat, you'll watch the 2 minutes and go, oh my God, I got to get the whole thing. And then we have the how to read a pet food label, we have the report on the glyphosate levels, et cetera, a whole package for pet owners. And I just want to make sure we get that in, because I know in the United States, there's 69% of households have pets. And there's more pets in the United States than children under 11. It is a big deal.
It is.
And so we can not only save the lives and health of these pets and increase lifespan, and according to the pet owners and the vets, increase their energy, create a puppy-like or a kitten-like energy where it's long been gone from their step. we can also change the marketplace. And we'll talk about that later as people realize how dangerous it is. I talked to you in the beginning, I said we've affected tens of millions of people. That is not an exaggeration. It is modest because we have affected the whole marketplace already. And we'll talk about that after we have discussed more of the actual health issues.
Yes, and if I can take a little step back, and that I'll tell you why we actually started a show called Pet Star, and that was also part of the information that I learned on your website. And then
beautiful.
what we actually did is we actually designed a whole line of humic fulvic products for pets because of this whole thing that I learned on your website. So we knew that we wanted to find an ingredient and really help the pets out there, because if I can deviate for just a second, Jeffrey, but you know what? The health of the people is the health of their pets. And also, if we don't get people, get the pets of pet owners healthier, it actually makes the people sick. So the people make the pets sick, and the pets make the people sick when the pets get sick. So that's why we came out with a line of pet products, and I started a show that we have every once a month, and it's called Pet Star, where we try to bring on things where the pets and the pet owners can come together and get healthier.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. I have to say that in terms of influencing humans, there's another thing of the psychology of it. Right now, 46% of Americans are seeking non-GMO food, according to the latest survey. And many of them, of course, own pets, and they forget that they can do non-GMO and organic for their pets. So some people will change their own diet first or try, and then realize they can change their pet's diet in a single brand. And some people will hear about it for their pets, change the pet's diet. And this happened, the veterinarians told us, like this one veterinarian, Barbara Royal, she's Oprah Winfrey's vet. She said that the first thing she does with all of her patients is put them on an organic diet and she says, come back in a few weeks and we'll see what happens. She said 50 to 70% of all the problems are managed or gone away. And so she knows it's diet related. And so then the people go, oh my God, what is it? And then she explains and they go, oh, this is in my food. And then they change their diet. So let's talk about what can affect us in the food that we eat. This is the name of the movie, Secret Ingredients. You can, by the way, go and see the movie at secretingredientsmovie.com. It's also on iTunes, Amazon, and Google Play. But if you go to secretingredientsmovie.com, there's links to all of them.
Excellent, excellent. So what are the conditions, what conditions respond to a dietary change?
You know, when I learned that people were getting better based from the doctors, starting in 2012 when I was lecturing, I was doing about 50 lectures a year. No, actually, that was 100. That was close to 100 lectures that year. I would ask audiences how many people noticed an improvement from switching to a non-GMO and largely organic diet, and a bunch of hands went up. And then I'd always say, okay, give me some examples. And people would say, okay, I've got acid reflux or irritable bowel or something digestive. So I just make the general question, how many people noticed an improvement in digestion? And a lot of hands would go up. And people, then that was always the number one response. Always the highest percentage in over 150 lectures was digestive disorders. The number two was always increased energy and reduced brain fog. And then there was things like lost weight, and I mean, it ranged. There was so many, I wrote them down, and there was like close to 30 conditions. So then we did a survey at the Institute for Responsible Technology to our subscribers, and you can go to our site at responsibletechnology.org and become a subscriber and stay up to date. We surveyed, and we got 3,256 responses of people who said they got better from 28 different conditions, and 85% of those people said they got better from digestive problems. The next was fatigue. The next was overweight. The next was brain fog. Then there was allergies, and down to autism and hypertension and skin conditions and anxiety and depression and sleep problems. 28 different conditions.
What about infertility? What about infertility? It's skyrocketing right now.
You know, it's true. In the film, there's a doctor of chiropractic who has a clinic, And she said, like in I think it was 94, there were 40 fertility clinics. Now there's 440. Now, when she was getting known for turning infertile couples into parents. And so more and more were coming to her. And I said, what's your protocol? She says, well, the number one thing is to switch to organic. And then I do chiropractic. And then I do mindset. So there's a positive attitude. And those were the 3 pillars of her practice. Well, she's in the film. Some of the people that came to her were in the film. We have one person that wasn't related to her who had 3 miscarriages and was trying to get pregnant again. We had someone in her office that was unable to have a period until they switched to organic, and then they got the period and became pregnant. She has 92 couples who followed her protocol who were infertile, who could not have kids, most of them had been to the fertility clinics, 92 with children. And Doc, guess how many followed her protocol and were unable to get pregnant?
I don't know.
0. Every
oh my gosh,
100% success rate. And this is in epidemic proportions. Now, this is the first of the conditions we're looking at. So let's take a little deeper dive into this and say, what could possibly in our diet be affecting fertility? Now, one thing is this: the human body realizes that if the woman is going to get pregnant, she needs to be healthy to carry that baby to term and have a healthy pregnancy. One of the reasons for miscarriages or infertility, I am told, is that the body does not feel healthy enough to carry the child.
The environment, it cannot create a healthy baby. So it's nature's way of saying, until you get it together, we're going to have to abandon this project.
So if you look at the characteristics, let's just take a look at Roundup herbicide for a moment. We'll talk about GMOs as well. And by the way, most GMOs are specifically engineered to be sprayed with Roundup. They're called Roundup ready crops: soy, corn, cotton, canola, sugar beets, and alfalfa. Most of those are Roundup ready, and 80% of all the GMOs in the world, more than that, are engineered to be sprayed with Roundup. Roundup's active ingredient is glyphosate. We already mentioned that it was determined to be a carcinogen for animals and a probable carcinogen for humans. Monsanto lost a key trial in San Francisco in August where they got assessed $289 million by a jury. The judge lowered it to $78 million, but it concluded that it was the Roundup that caused the cancer and Monsanto was hiding the evidence. So let's just take a look at Roundup's impact in the body and there's specific things about fertility and about pregnancy, which we'll talk about in a minute, but the general health impact. Now, as you know, there are certain foundational systems and components of the human body that drive health. Our microbiome, our gut wall integrity, the minerals that we take, our mitochondria, our neurotransmitters, our hormones. Every one of those is influenced negatively by Roundup and glyphosate. For example, it is an antibiotic, so it can ravage the positive gut bacteria. We've seen this in animals, we've seen this in test tubes. It easily kills the beneficial gut bacteria. And if you have an imbalance of gut bacteria and microbiome is very involved in the immune system, digestion, and detoxification. If you create an imbalance in that, according to many experts, most diseases have part of their etiology, their origin, in the imbalance of gut bacteria. Okay, that's one. 2, the gut integrity. If you have holes in the walls of the intestines, either between the cells or within the cells, and glyphosate can cause holes between the cells, then that's linked to cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, autism, autoimmune disease, allergies, inflammation. And inflammation is linked to most diseases. So there's 2. 3, minerals. Glyphosate was originally patented to clean industrial boilers and pipes because it's a chelator. It grabs onto all the minerals, strips them off the walls of the pipes and boilers, and takes them out into the garbage. They spread it on the ground. It killed plants. Monsanto came along and said, great, it's an herbicide. Let's buy it and patent it, which they did. But it still binds with minerals. And when it makes those minerals unavailable, Now, minerals are cofactors to all of our enzymatic metabolic pathways. So the shikimate pathway that produces the precursors to serotonin, melatonin, and dopamine, that gets disabled or blocked. So now if we have not enough serotonin, dopamine, or melatonin, we'll have sleep disorders, anxiety, depression, pain, possibly Parkinson's. There's another metabolic pathway that helps the liver detox. That can be affected by glyphosate, in which case all the other poisons that are hanging around in the body, waiting for the liver to usher them out, that they can be amplified if the detox is not happening. So now we've amplified all these other environmental toxins. It is a hormone disruptor, an endocrine disruptor. It can affect the balance of estrogen and testosterone by affecting aromatase. Now we're getting to some of the specific fertility issues. It is a mitochondrial toxin. We know there are so many practitioners now at the cutting edge that realize that the mitochondria is a big driver. It's 10% of our body weight. The heart has 5,000 mitochondria in it. It's part of how our cells talk to each other. It's the energy booster, and it's linked to cancer for many years. It's linked to aging. In fact, if you put the ancient tissue, or an old person and a young person's tissues next to each other, which they did, the only difference they found was the intact mitochondria. So it's related to age, and it's related to cancer and other problems. So glyphosate cuts at each of these levels and creates an unhealthy body. Now, because it blocks the use of minerals, then without manganese, then the sperm motility might be affected. It actually can get into the cord blood and affect the fetus. It can damage placental cells. When you look at GMO soy, which is sprayed with Roundup, it damaged the sperm cells of mice. It damaged the testicles of rats. It changed the ovary and uterus structure and the hormone level of female rats. And we find that these are fundamental issues, of course, that are necessary for reproduction. And there's also this other organism, or possibly prion, that seems to be associated with the spraying it on crops, where they found it in ranches and farms where they've had significant problems with fertility. They remove the they move the Roundup, the amount of this prion or biomatrix, they don't know exactly what it is, that reduces, and the fertility starts up again. So there's a lot of evidence that the general health and also the specific reproductive mechanisms that will support a healthy pregnancy are undermined by Roundup alone. And we can also bring in GMOs and say that some of the impact, and perhaps a lot of it, could be from the genetic engineering itself.
Well, so what we have is what the mad scientist in the kitchen, and everybody is paying for that. Now, I don't want to get into the whole conspiracy thing, but all of this just leads everybody into the pain and inflammation cycle that then leads them into the pharmaceutical cycle. So everything is just, it's almost like a harvesting of the human population.
And Bayer, who creates the aspirin, it's a pharmaceutical company, they bought Monsanto. So now if there's problems in the health because of Monsanto's GMOs and their herbicide, then people will buy some of the products from Bayer. So it's an interesting cycle there. Now, what happened was Bayer's value went down $20 or $30 billion when the lawsuit came out where Monsanto was found guilty of causing the cancer of this San Francisco school groundskeeper, because there's about 10,000 other plaintiffs waiting to sue.
Right.
So, and that's just one disease. I mean, let's pick another disease. Well, in addition to cancer, there's in the film, and this is interesting, there's a family with they had 21 chronic conditions in 5 people. The mother was paralyzed, had allergies, had depression, chronic pain syndrome. There was 24 hours of pain in her. She had to leave her job. She was permanently disabled. The husband had a breast tumor, gynecomastia. The older son was autistic. The middle son had breathing problems, asthma, bloating, irritable mood. The younger one had eczema all over the body. So she starts to figure out it's the food. So she starts studying food, spent 1,700 hours studying nutrition, has a degree, read listened to 800 listened to 800 hours of expert interviews, read 200 books. I mean, she was a type A plus personality, and started to experiment on the family. And after removing gluten and processed foods and dyes and things like that, she was seeing improvements, but they were still managing each of the problems. When they switched to an organic diet after she learned about GMOs and Roundup, within 3 weeks, there were things that got better that were sticking around for years. And within 6 months, there was none of the chronic issues existed. She was watching the change from this final change in the diet, the change in the health from the final change in the diet, which was eliminating GMOs and Roundup. We have someone else in there whose son, and by the way, the son is no longer autistic. Okay,
Wow.
and this is one of 2 families that switched to organic that had autistic sons, and their son is no longer autistic. And a third woman, her son was starting to exhibit autistic signs. The microbiome showed that it had the fungus and bacteria associated with autism, and his urine had higher levels of glyphosate than was recorded in Europe. And she put the boy on an all organic diet, removed all sources of glyphosate, no longer tests for glyphosate, and all the autistic symptoms went away.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, and the thing is, we could drill down into the specific aspects of autism, and it can get very technical. But let me just say this about autism. If you track the prevalence of autism of 6-year-olds in the United States, you'll see a particular dramatic increase in a graph. If you track the use of Roundup on GMO soy and corn, it also goes up in the same slope. It's nearly a perfect slope. Now, there's about 30 or more diseases that have a similar slope correlation, and autism is about the highly correlated. Now, correlation doesn't prove causation, but if you have this kind of clinical evidence and you have plausible explanation as to why Roundup or GMOs could create an autistic symptom, now that correlation is important to look at the overall picture. Now, Dr. Stephanie Seneff from MIT, who's an expert at computer science and has a degree in biology, was trying to solve the autism puzzle. So she pulled all the data about autism. She's an expert at gathering big data, gathered it all, found out what's happening to the autistic body. And so she said to me, I could tell based on the deficiencies and the changes in the physiology why they had the symptoms that they did, but I couldn't figure out the environmental insult that was causing those problems. And she pulled all the big data on every chemical she knew about, and nothing matched until she learned about glyphosate and said it was a perfect match.
Now, does glyphosate, if I'm right, does glyphosate, like, it opens it up to the blood-brain barrier, and then it allows all the does glyphosate take all the toxins into the brain as well?
Well, what it does is it causes a separation of cells. We've seen that in laboratory. And this can create this leaky gut. When it's in the gut, is, as we say, linked to inflammation, autoimmune disease, etc. But speaking to some of the experts who've done the research, they say actually, if it separates the cells in the gut, it separates the cells all over, and our organs become sponges for toxins. And that would include the blood-brain barrier.
Got it.
Now, I don't think there's been any studies of the blood-brain barrier after the animals have received glyphosate, but we see it on cells, we see it on human cells, and it is predicted that that's what happens.
Yeah, and with the actual leaky gut, what everybody talks about, which 80% or more of the population have, when you do GMOs, what happens is the lining becomes inflamed, and when it becomes inflamed, you have to understand the permeability of the lining inside your intestines is only 1 cell thick. It will replenish and heal itself every something like 5 to 7 days. But the problem is it never gets to heal itself. And if it keeps on getting bombarded by this and the inflammation continues, then it becomes damaged on a chronic basis that it can never heal itself properly unless you were to do the things that Jeffrey's talking about right now. And that is, if you've got a 20-foot hole, you better get a 20-foot ladder, not a 10-foot ladder. Eh, Jeffrey?
Indeed. And just to give another angle, one angle on leaky gut, which I think it's a story that people can then walk away with understanding. When we have an intact gut lining, then only itsy bitsy, that's a technical term, itsy bitsy pieces of our food can get through because they're absorbed through the microvilli, through the cell walls, and become part of our bodies and our energy, etc. If we have holes between the cells, then it's possible that not only the bacteria and the microbiome get into the bloodstream and also the chemicals, but also pieces of our food that haven't been broken down. So they're undigested proteins. Now, what happens is the immune system will look at an undigested protein when it comes into the bloodstream and interpret it as an invader. And it has the immune attack by creating antibodies. And this is a modern immune system, so they all take out their iPhones and take pictures of the invader and post it on the body's Facebook and say, go after anything that looks like this. But it's not completely modern. They don't have the latest iPhone. They have the earlier versions, and so it's pixelated and kind of fuzzy. And so the immune system attacks anything that looks like those proteins, which means the thyroid or the microvilli or the pancreas or the muscles. And it turns out that's what autoimmune disease is. It's the immune system attacking the body because of leaky gut and old iPhones. So it's because the immune system is attacking things that look like the proteins that have come through these gaps. And those proteins wouldn't have gotten in there if there weren't the leaky gut. So there's a high correlation between leaky gut and autoimmune disease.
And Jeffrey, if I can say this is where the Russian roulette comes in, because wherever those particles attach to, you're going to get inflammation of the eye or the pancreas or some type of organ or some type of joint. So wherever those particles attach, that's where the immune system goes to attack.
Now, it's interesting that if you just look at autoimmune disease, you'll find that certain people have a greater weakness in certain systems.
Yes.
And so they'll end up with the Hashimoto's, or they'll end up with the rheumatoid arthritis or whatever. And so the same underlying cause can give rise to many different diseases depending on the weakness in the body. The same thing occurs with GMOs and Roundup. In the film Secret Ingredients, Kathleen's family had 21 chronic conditions, all different. They got rid of the GMOs and Roundup in their food, got rid of the other toxins because they switched to organic, and everyone got better. And you try to say, well, okay, what do GMOs and Roundup cause? They cause ill health. How does it manifest? It depends on you. It depends on what is weak in your system.
That's amazing. That really, truly is amazing. So there's a major place for people to start, but everybody really needs to watch this new film that you put out. So where can they go again?
So the movie is called Secret Ingredients, and the website is secretingredientsmovie.com. And it can also direct you to the usual suspects to watch it on your television. Now, what we want to see happen is that the movie drives an organic tsunami. And we believe that it can do that. I have had experience doing massive behavior change messaging. As I mentioned earlier, 46% of Americans are now trying to avoid GMOs, and that's because they've been alerted to the health dangers, and we pioneered that discussion. So now we're expanding the discussion on GMOs and introducing Roundup. And Roundup and glyphosate, it turns out, are not just sprayed on GMOs, but they're sprayed on all the cereals, the grains, oats, wheat, barley, rye. It's sprayed on the beans, lentils, mung beans, peas. It's sprayed on in potato fields and sweet potatoes. It's sprayed on orchards. It's found in wine and in orange juice. It's sprayed so prevalently in the US food supply and elsewhere that it's no longer sufficient to say, eat non-GMO and organic when you can. It's eat organic and non-GMO when you can't. In other words, if organic doesn't allow GMOs or Roundup, that would be the highest priority. But if you can't eat organic, at least get non-GMO.
Okay, so Jeffrey, please take your time with this, but tell people where they can go so they can get that quick overview on what they can eat, what they can't eat, what they can do. Give them a step-by-step here so that all our listeners can do this.
So I would say when you go to secretingredientsmovie.com, even if you don't buy, if you buy it there to watch it on your computer, or if you get a DVD or a Blu-ray, we will have your email and we will let you know some of this information because we're writing the response letters now to help educate people. If you don't watch it there, then give us your name. Sign up to join the list so that you can be given information on a regular basis because we are catering to people generally who've seen the movie, and virtually everyone who sees the movie wants to change their diet. Now, in addition to that, there are the following GMO crops: soy, corn, cotton, canola, sugar beets. Sugar beets are used for sugar only, not for the beets that you buy. Alfalfa, which is a major feed for animals. So those are the 6 major commodities: soy, corn, cotton, canola, sugar beets, and alfalfa. And remember, the cotton itself is Roundup ready. It also creates an insecticide. We haven't talked about that. But because it's sprayed with Roundup, they found glyphosate residues on 85% of the tampons that they tested in Argentina. So do you want to use organic feminine hygiene material? Also on bandages, use clean bandages because you don't want glyphosate touching an open wound. So then in addition to those 6 major ones, you have the minor ones, which are papaya from Hawaii or China only, some zucchini, some yellow squash, apples that are designed not to turn brown when they are cut. So Arctic apples, if you go to Amazon and buy pre-sliced apples, they will probably be the GMO type. Potatoes that are also designed not to turn brown when they're sliced, and there's going to be in 4,000 stores, etc. So if it's not organic, I wouldn't eat the potato. And then there's salmon, which is sold in Canada, but not yet in the United States. So there's 11 GM crops and plus salmon. So all the others are not GMO. So if you're looking just to avoid GMOs, then you can go to non-GMOshoppingguide.com and you can see which products are verified by the Non-GMO Project, which is the best version of a non-GMO label that there is. But if you're looking for organic, well, then there's the organic seal. Now, if you're looking for the absolute best, then you get both, the organic seal plus the Non-GMO Project. Why is that? The organic certification means you're not allowed to use GMOs, but they don't test to see if contamination has occurred. But the Non-GMO Project does require testing. So if you have the organic seal plus the Non-GMO Project, then that's the best of both worlds. If you can't get both, organic is your next best choice. And if that's not available, Non-GMO Project is your next best choice.
Yeah, and it's really important that everybody understands that you can no longer say, I cannot afford to eat organic or non-GMO. I mean, you have to do this. And remember something, you're getting a way better nutrition, and the better nutrition without the chemicals is going to create more vitality. You could eat 1/3 of this food compared to 3/3 of the other food because you're going to enter into chronic fatigue. You're always going to be trying to jack yourself back up with these products that just don't have life force in them. You have to understand that mankind is not kind. Mankind cannot be trusted. You have to go back to nature as much as possible. And we're getting too much into the technology age. We're getting too much into man-made products. Am I right about that, Jeffrey? How do you feel about that?
Well, I wanted to address what you said about whether people can afford it or not, because that's the number one objection, especially for people who have it available, but decide that it's too expensive. Some people just feel that they don't have it available, and then they don't realize that there's online delivery systems for organic that are actually, in some cases, cheaper than you can get in a store.
Wow.
But for those that are concerned about the expense, first of all, consider getting an online delivery system. There's a couple that I know, Azure Standard, Thrive, but you can Google it. Second, I talked to a family that had a family of 6, and they had a medical bill of $18,000 a year. They switched to organic. The next year it went down to $9,000. The next year it went down to below $3,000. And the amount that they were spending on organic was way surpassed by the amount that they saved. Take a look at the film Secret Ingredients. You'll see that some of the key players, they don't go to the doctors these days because their kids are healthy. Now, in addition, you have the improved lifestyle. So if you have more energy and clarity, etc., then your life quality improves, but also your ability to earn in some cases is related to your clarity of mind and your energy. So you can also support yourself that way. And if you think about it, there's another way, and that is I'm an activist and I'm proud of it, because as an activist, basically, what is it saying? I come from a family of teachers. And when people, when someone's an educator, they learn something, they want to share it. When I learn that there's some problem, I want to share the information in order to effect change. So it's an educator with a desire to change. That's what I'll define as activism. So when I think about the food supply now, it's contaminated, just as you say, it's totally contaminated. And it's supporting a devastation of the microbiome in the soil, of our soil minerals, of our health of our planet. And it's also supporting a tremendous increase in disease. If you look at the 30 graphs showing that increase of diseases correlated to GMOs and Roundup, if even part of that was due to GMOs and Roundup, we're talking tens of millions or hundreds of millions of people that are affected. Now, if you invest, I use the word invest in organic food, you are supporting a change in the environment, in the way farmers plant, in the way that the diversity can be rebuilt, the soil, and that even changes the climate. It's so intricately connected. So some people give money in a philanthropic way, but are frugal when it comes to their food. I want you to put 3 budgets together: your philanthropy budget, your health budget, and your food budget. And realize you're investing in your health, you're investing in your environment and in the system of farming, and you're investing in good, healthy food that will taste better, that you can actually, as you say, eat less of and get more nutrients.
And if I can add something to that, I want everybody to really think about this for a second. Why is it that one person has no problem? I mean, they don't have the best paying job in the world, but they have no problem seeking out the best food to feed their body, whereas another person has they make a lot of money, but you can see the choices that they make are toxic to their body. And it's all about beliefs. So you've got to take a look at your beliefs, because your beliefs can rule you, school you, and they can fool you to the point that you can get sick. And understand something, the level, okay, of how you look after yourself is the level that how much you truly love yourself. And it really comes down to that. And understand something, we have been taught beliefs not to love ourselves, but you've got to love the body you're in, because that's your vehicle. And you really need to take a good look at that and understand that you don't have to be sick. You don't have to have chronic fatigue. You don't have to not have energy to love yourself or to love your wife, your husband, or your children. Because understand something, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeffrey, but the GMOs and all these chemicals, they alter moods. And when you alter moods, people think you don't love them anymore. And when you alter your own mood, you can't help but not love yourself. So there's hate programs going on in our food industry, and then we take those programs on a subconscious level, but then it hurts us on an unconscious level, and that means every cell of the human body.
More than 50% of the people that responded to the survey who changed their diet and noticed improvement, more than 50% said that there were changes in their mood, including anxiety and depression. Now, what could explain that? Also, if you look at the diagnosis of anxiety, it's one of those 30 plus diseases that are rising in parallel with the increased use of Roundup sprayed on GMO soy and corn. Anxiety is related to neurotransmitters like serotonin. And serotonin is produced in 2 ways. I mean, I'll give you two aspects of how it's produced. One, it needs L-tryptophan. And the L-tryptophan is produced by gut bacteria by a pathway called the shikimate pathway. Doesn't matter what the name is, but this is what Monsanto bragged about for years, saying Roundup or glyphosate blocks the shikimate pathway, and plants have it, and humans don't. That's why Roundup is safe. But they ignored the fact that our gut bacteria use the shikimate pathway to produce the neurotransmitters, the aromatic amino acids that produce the neurotransmitters, serotonin, which then also produces melatonin, which is linked to sleep and insomnia or other sleep disorders. And it also is linked to dopamine, the tyrosine that's produced by the shikimate pathway. So that's one way that our neurotransmitters might be affected. Another way is, I'm told that about 30% of the cells along the gut lining, and when you unravel all that, it's about the size of 2 tennis courts, that 30% of them are hormone-producing cells that can produce serotonin. But in experiments with these poor rats and mice, if they wipe out the gut bacteria, then the serotonin doesn't get produced, at least not in anywhere near that quantity. So it's an interaction between the gut bacteria and the cell walls. So it turns out that you need to have the gut bacteria intact, and the gut bacteria is damaged by glyphosate. So that's another way that the serotonin might be affected.
And we need to understand that, and most of you already do, that the gut, otherwise the large intestine, your bacteria are known as your second brain. And if they knock out that second brain with glyphosate, you have to understand that your bacteria actually talk to your brain approximately 9 to 12 times for just once that your brain talks to your gut. So there's a lot of communication coming from the gut. And what glyphosate does is it distorts the whole communication. And by doing that, we have a breakdown. When we have a breakdown in communication, then the relationship goes sideways, and that's what we call dis-ease, or otherwise not being at ease.
I want to talk about that communication going on. I did a series called Healing from GMOs and Roundup, and interviewed a number of experts with products and procedures for what to do to in addition to getting rid of the diet, dietary problems, what else people can do to detox, rebuild, and repair. And I gained a lot of understanding about intercellular communication. And one speaker talked about how the basis of disease is lack of intercellular communication, and said basically cancer is lonely cells. They don't have that communication. And the leaky gut, similarly, they're losing the intercellular communication. And there was also the discussion about the role of the mitochondria and its role as a way for the parts of the body to talk to each other. They move from cell to cell. And then there was another discussion about RNA, that DNA produces RNA, which produces proteins. RNA was considered for years to be basically irrelevant, to be a way station between the DNA, which is the library, and the proteins, which is what we use. But it turns out that the RNA is part of the crosstalk, that there's a lot of conversations going on between the microbiome, between us, et cetera, and that 98 or 99% of the DNA in our bodies comes from the microbiome. Of the cells, it may be 90% of the cells in our body, but it's 98 or 99% of the DNA, all of the diversity. And so that provides RNA, which provides intercellular communication, which is the basis of health. So if we're destroying the microbiome, if we're damaging the mitochondria, if we're cutting off cellular communication through glyphosate or Roundup or GMOs, then that could explain why so many diseases are linked to this process.
Absolutely. And if there's something else I want to touch on, and then I'd like your view on this, and that is that we're told now that a child of around 12 years old, in around that age, is going to live 10 to 15 years less than their parents due to all this GMO, all this Roundup, everything that's going on here. And so what I'd like to know is how do we get the parents, because see, the biggest thing is parents do want their children well, but the parents, how do we get the parents to wake up to this, that they've got to make this change? Because just think of those that are parents now, what about their grandchildren? Or, I mean, what chance does the grandchildren have if we see this much of a decline in the children that are just entering into the teenage years right now, that could have a decline in their age by 12 to 15 years?
This is a good question, and it's really important. And I hope some of the grandparents and parents and others that have relatives, listen to this. Um, Before Secret Ingredients, I created the film Genetic Roulette. And at the time, and it had been till now, the most effective conversion tool for non-GMO diets. Now, Secret Ingredients is a better film. It's more compelling. Doesn't have all the information from the other one, but it's the one that I think will make the most impact because it has these human interest stories that are very emotional and gripping. But I was at a conference speaking, and I had a booth, and we had a volunteer at the booth, and she said, "I watched your film Genetic Roulette, and I thought of my grandchild, my grandson. Not only had trouble breathing, but every single day the school would call home because he would be acting out. So I said to my son, if there's anything you do in this lifetime because I ask you to, please watch this film." Talk about compelling closing sales. I mean, amazing. Yeah. So he watches Genetic Roulette and says, "Oh my God, we're changing the boy's diet." They change his diet, no more trouble breathing, and no more calls from school except on the days after the grandson has eaten at the other grandparent's house, because it's that quick in terms of the impact. I was speaking at MIT, and I asked the audience to describe changes that they may have had when they changed their diet. A woman said, "I watched your film, Genetic Roulette, and changed the diet in my son." Now, my son was acting out and was violent and out of control, was her words. Violent and out of control. They wanted to kick him out of school. And she told me later they wanted to classify him as retarded. She said, "I changed his diet and all of the problems went away." I said, "How long did it take?" She said, 1 week. Then she said, "Within a month, I had a new son." I talked to Dr. Michelle Perro, a pediatrician for close to 40 years, who has seen the changes in kids as a result of the introduction of GMOs and Roundup in the food supply, and sees the reversion when she puts the families on an organic diet. And I said, "What do parents generally say after you've changed the diet?" She says, "I can't recognize my own child. They've changed that much." So this is the kind of impact we are seeing. And it's not a slow process, and it's not subtle. In fact, in the film Secret Ingredients, we have some doctors saying that they've put people on healthy diets and then they cheat for a single meal or a weekend or a vacation, and the symptoms come back. Now, it doesn't happen quickly for everyone. It happens quickly for some. But he said that becomes the proof that they need to stay on the healthy diet. But it happens that quickly for so many people. Now, we have heard so many people who've watched the movie Secret Ingredients say, "I showed it to my kids, and after trying to get them to change their diet for years, they watched the film and changed their diet." I sent it to a family. They're in the organic distribution business. They eat extremely healthy. And they showed it to the family, and the kids were angry and said, "How come you let us eat any junk food?" So kids have gotten parents to change their diet. Parents have gotten kids to change their diet. Grandparents have gotten grandchildren. So when the question is, how do you do it? Sit down with them and watch the film and see what happens. Because we have done pre and post test surveys of audiences, and virtually everyone wants to change their diet after watching the film. And nearly everyone, perhaps everyone, has already, by the time the credits roll, has already decided that they want to share the film with someone that they know that's suffering a particular problem that's highlighted in the film, and they think they may want to help them get better by showing them the film so they change their diet.
Absolutely. And you know what? This toxicity problem is not going to go away. Okay, it's going to get worse. And I'll tell you something. And that's why we came out with the humic fulvic line that we have, because it's one of the best ways to go in there and scavenger all of this and get it out. But and I send people to your films, and as soon as they do that and they watch your films and they really get their act together on this whole GMO organic thing, that's when, Jeffrey, we see the biggest turnaround between these two things. Now, what we're going to do, Jeffrey, is I'm going to actually put all this information. We have what's called the the Perfect Day Guide on docofdetoxlibrary.com, and we're going to make sure that all this information on how to see Russian roulette and secret ingredients is all in that
Genetic
guide.
roulette. Genetic roulette.
Pardon? Yeah, genetic
Genetic
roulette.
roulette.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry about that. Anyway,
It's okay.
so it's all going to be in there. So if anybody, if we're going to make sure that we have what's called the docofdetoxlibrary.com, and it's going to be in all our guidebooks. And I want everybody out there right now, if you're in the health business, you're not in the health business, I want you to think of a way that you can help this movement with Jeffrey Smith. I'm telling you, I've known Jeffrey for years, and his heart's in the right place. I mean, he is such a dynamo. And everybody out there, I want you to figure out a way that you can help get the word out, okay, about these two films. They're very important. Everybody should watch them. And I love how that mother said, if you do one thing, just one thing for me, please watch this film. And I think that's really important, that we make people understand that, because once they get the truth, they take it to heart, then that's when their family won't be torn apart, because we've got to return back to nature. And if there's two films that are going to do it, this will be it. Now, Jeffrey, can you just tell the people what has been some of the reactions to watching Secret Ingredients? What are some of the reactions you're getting back from people?
Well, before we released it, people would just watch the trailer and say, I changed my diet and it changed my health.
Good.
I ask an audience prior to watching to rate themselves from 1 to 100, what percentage of their diet is organic. And I say that includes going out to eat, eating at other people's houses, the popcorn that they had at the theater. And I said, okay, how many people would rate themselves between 1 and 20%? And I raise my hand, and then we see in the audience 20 to 40, 40 to 60. So we have evaluated where the audience buying habits are prior to watching the film. I might also ask how many people talk about GMOs or Roundup. How vigilant are you at talking about it? And they give themselves a self-rating. After the film, before we Q&A, just straight from watching the film, I say, okay, what percentage of organics in your diet do you plan to have from now on? How many people, 0 to 20? I raise my hand. I'm the only one with a hand up. 20 to 40, I'm the only one with my hand up. Everyone is sort of huddled in the 60 to 100 range because they've made a change on the spot. And then I say, how vigilant do you plan to be at sharing this information with others? Same thing, higher percentage. Or I'll ask how many people have already thought of someone that you want to share the film with. And I've never seen someone not raise their hand. I've seen in every single case, everyone raises their hand. Then we hear the emails. I changed, there's the two sides of the spectrum. I got my daughter, or my daughter watched it and changed. So it's the getting people to watch it and to change their diet. And then the impact from the change. I changed my diet and this happened, or this happened. I lost weight. Everyone seems to lose weight when they're overweight, when they switch to an organic diet, even if they're not focusing on weight. Or I get more energy. See, what I'd like to recommend is that people actually do a food diary and a symptom diary and an energy diary and a mood diary during the time when you're transforming your diet. So you do a percentage of GMO, percentage of organic, and what's different. Because you may be focusing on your weight or some particular problem. Maybe you have eczema or psoriasis or some autoimmune disease, and you may be focusing on that, thinking that that's going to be the one that reveals it. And you may miss entirely that your fatigue went away, or you miss entirely that you lost weight, or miss entirely that your allergies, you're no longer allergic to that season or that food. So having a comprehensive food diary for the first 30 days of transformation, starting before and then going during and seeing what happens, might be very effective for some people to realize the impact, because sometimes we don't track it.
I'm going to ask you a couple questions here, and that is, the first one is, I'm a natural health practitioner, or I'm a doctor of any sort. What can I do to help the movement? What would I do if I was in the health profession? What can I do? Can you tell me what I could do for you?
Well, there's one generic thing, whether you're a health practitioner or not, and that is we have a nonprofit called the Institute for Responsible Technology, and I invite people to make a donation at responsibletechnology.org. We have a small staff, but we actually are largely responsible for initiating the tipping point of consumer rejection in the United States against GMOs, which is forcing it out of more and more brands. The major food companies, in order to maintain market share, are getting rid of GMOs out of mainstream products. And more are putting non-GMO on their label. And we were the major pioneers of this, of the health expose on the health dangers of GMOs and Roundup. And we're now leading the charge on pets. We want to expand this tipping point around the world so we take care of the entire world's food supply. We want to push it to all the animal feed as well. We want to push it so it's not just non-GMO, but organic. So we have big plans for the whole world. My slogan on my t-shirt says, think huge, thinking big is so last century. So we want to think huge, and we want your support for that. Now, for practitioners, I would say two things. Watch the film, Secret Ingredients, and buy a bunch of them to either sell or loan or give away to patients. But also, I wrote an article for the International Journal of Human Nutrition and Functional Medicine. And it's about 26 pages. The last 6 pages are all the endnotes. And it's about the survey results of how people got better from 28 different conditions. But it's far more than that, because it's like deep information about why and how GMOs and Roundup and the Bt toxin that's produced by corn that can kill insects and poke holes in human cells in a laboratory and possibly create leaky gut and an immune system responses in humans. There's a lot of evidence showing that it does both. How these three things, GMOs, Roundup, and the Bt toxin created from some GMOs, could be responsible for lots of different diseases. And then we focus in on the third part about digestion in particular, because that's always number one. And that is written for the practitioner. It's written in the International Journal of Human Nutrition and Functional Medicine. And you can see it at non-GMOimproveshealth.com. We have a link to that, plus a summary page for the layperson. But that'll give you the detailed scientific understanding that will give you the confidence to say GMOs, Roundup, and Bt toxin are dangerous. You need to be eating organic. But in terms of compliance, that's one of the big issues for a natural healthcare practitioner, an integrated practitioner. Compliance is everything. Know that there has not been anything tested that's as effective at converting people to organic as the film, Secret Ingredients. And so it's a combination of that document plus the film. And then if people get on our list, we will help provide information to handhold people during the transformation. We're writing these now. If you have tips for us, let us know, and we're going to be passing those tips on to the community.
What are the different ways that I can purchase Secret Ingredients? Can I download it? Can I buy a DVD? Can you tell me all the different ways? Or because there's people who approach things differently.
Okay. SecretIngredientsMovie.com. You can buy a DVD. You can buy a Blu-ray. You can buy a bundle of 5 at a 20% discount, a bundle of 10 at a 30% discount. We're trying to get this out to the world. You can rent it on that site for computer viewing or buy it on that site for permanent access. You can go to iTunes. You can go to Amazon. You can go to Google Play. They all have Secret Ingredients. And again, if you go to iTunes, Google Play, or Amazon, still visit secretingredientsmovie.com and give us your email so that we can help you with the transformation that's going to be the life changer. The film itself does the first job. It creates the desire, but actually making the change and sticking with it is what we want to focus on now. I've spent years with Amy Hart creating this film. Now we're going to be building the resources and the online community and even local community support for people having healthier diets.
Wonderful. This is amazing. And well, Jeffrey, you already know that you're a true inspiration, and you've been leading the way for years now on the whole GMO and glyphosate issue. And I want to thank you for bringing the pets into the fold too. And also, we need to really take a good look at this, everybody out there. And I want you to really really get involved and go to Jeffrey's site and really start talking about this. This is an issue. And the more people that talk about it, because majority rules, that's always the case. Majority rules, and the majority of the population has not moved over into closer to nature. So the closer we get to nature, the healthier we're going to be, the healthier our children are going to be, our grandchildren are going to be, and yes, even our pets. Jeffrey, is there anything else you'd like to tell everybody before we close?
Well, I think that one other thing, Doc, and that is this. When we put GMOs into the environment, they self-propagate. You put GM corn in one field, it cross-pollinates with the non-GMO corn, same with other products. And then when you grow the seeds out, sometimes the seeds are from a genetically engineered parent, and now you end up with a system that is designed to self-propagate the genetic change or the mutation or the monstrosity or whatever it is. The most common result of genetic engineering is surprise side effects. We know many of the dangers, we don't know many of the other dangers. The biotech industry, Monsanto, just Monsanto, the leading GMO seed seller, now part of Bayer, their stated goal was to genetically engineer 100% of all commercial seeds in the world and patent it. Now, collectively, the biotech industry is kind of undergoing a gold rush, but not into gold, but into genes. It's a gene rush. They're trying to basically find patents for anything that has DNA and introduce it as soon as possible so they can make money before the patent expires. So they have in the pipeline somewhere under development all the genetically engineered fish, insects, livestock, pets, fungus, algae, bacteria, flowers, grass, trees. They want to replace nature. And if they do, it will eliminate the products of the billions of years of evolution and replace it with designer organisms, with designer genes from the infant technology that will create side effects that will be permanent for all future generations and affecting all living beings. There is nothing like this on the planet with this level of threat, which means, oddly enough, there's an opportunity to do more good than humans have ever had the opportunity to do in human history. We can help save the integrity and health of all living beings and all future generations. No one on Earth has been able to do that because there's never been a technology that could damage all living beings and all future generations. So we can look at it as a burden or we can look at it as an opportunity. And I'd like to say it's an opportunity. But it's an opportunity that has a clock ticking because if we don't stop it, the biotech industry has just created gene editing, which is a form of genetic engineering, which they're giving the same claims to that they gave to GMOs years ago, that it's so precise and so safe that it doesn't need to have any regulation. Well, there's now a raft of studies that show that it's not precise, it's not safe, and creates unpredicted side effects that may be dangerous or even deadly. And it costs next to nothing, if you have a lab, next to nothing to edit using CRISPR-Cas9, the newest and latest and greatest, to edit a gene. And then you just file the patent and put it on the market. So this means that our entire ecosystem, our biosphere, is under attack or is threatened. Now, we can think that we want to get the information to Congress or the president, and it turns out the biotech industry has done an amazingly good job at brainwashing the politicians, the media, academia, and farmers, and withholding from them the information that we've shared today and many others. So what we do have is the capacity to move the marketplace by educating people about the health dangers. You don't patent a product if there's no marketplace for it. You don't introduce new GMO food if no one's eating GMO food. Europe's food companies kicked out GMOs starting in 1999, even though the European Commission and their version of the FDA is pro-GMO. There's hardly any direct GMOs in the food, just through animal feed there. So we have the power, but we also have the opportunity / responsibility to act in this generation. So whether it's buying a bunch of DVDs and sharing it with everyone you know for the holidays or for the new year or whatever, or at any time, whether it's starting showings in your neighborhood, whether it's making a generous donation, whether it's becoming a regular donor, whether it's subscribing to our information and sharing it and becoming a click and send non-GMO revolutionary, whatever it is, I'm encouraging people, because now you have the information, now you have the inspiration to make a decision now and not put it off, because our life, our earth, our nature depends on our collective choices. And as you said, Doc, that, I have had a big influence and I know it. So I know the power of individuals. And I know that we each have a sphere of influence through our Facebook posts, through our friends, through our email list. And that if we can demonstrate a role of leadership, not only do we touch the people who we're directly connected to, we model for them the role that many of them will play. And then we can start replicating this protection of all living beings and all future generations. And so I encourage people to find an excuse to change your life, change your diet, and become an advocate for this healthier eating and lifestyle.
We all need to make a conscious decision to become Braveheart heroes first for ourselves, then our families, then our neighbors, then our community, then our country, and the world. But it all starts in the heart, from the heart. And you know what? I don't know a better thing that you could get behind. And everybody wants to be a hero. Everybody does want to be a hero. And this, if we come together as Braveheart heroes and we work together, we can create an army to make a tsunami of change. We can make a tsunami of change because we can become the majority, and the majority does rule. And I'll tell you something right now. You have the best information. It's made so simple, so easy to access by Jeffrey Smith. He's been at this for years. He's got it down to a science. I would never want to come up in front of him on some kind of debate, because nobody's going to win, because he's on the winning side. And I want everybody out there to understand something. Join the winning side. And that winning side is about saving humans. It's about having the life that we were promised, okay? Energy, joy. What's the difference between a good mood and a bad mood? Everything. There's a lot of people out there that, believe it or not, are considering suicide, right? They don't even want to live anymore because there's too much physical pain, too much emotional pain. And they don't even realize that they've been chemically poisoned, okay? But they've been chemically poisoned through their grocery stores. So we need to wake up and understand something. Share this show that we have today with everyone. And remember something. If you go to YouTube, okay, down in the corner of YouTube, right, you can actually, it will translate this show into every different language from around the world. So if you've got someone that doesn't speak English, understand this can be translated by YouTube. We need to get this. This is a global effort here, okay? And understand something, that we need to get behind Jeffrey Smith, because, wow, look what this one person has done. And when we all decide that we're going to make a difference, so understand something. Buy the movie Secret Ingredients. Do it. Buy a few of them and then share it with your family. Give it as a Christmas gift. Give it as a birthday gift. Give it for a gift from the heart. It doesn't have to be because of an occasion. The occasion is called, we need to work together as a family unit. This whole world needs to work together. Jeffrey, is there anything you'd like to say before we close?
Safe eating.
Safe eating. And guess what? It matters what goes on your fork, what goes in your mouth, okay? And together we can make a world of change. God bless. Have a great day. And join us for more Doc of Detox shows at docofdetoxshow.com. And if you want more information, please go to docofdetoxlibrary.com. All my best. Be blessed.